I'm all about living a life that you are incredibly proud of. So let's do it.
Hi guys, it's Kirbie. Welcome back to Pretty Unfiltered. Today's guest is Claire Wineland. You know her because she has her own YouTube channel called The Clarity Project. I love a good play on words.
Thank you.
That's a
it
good
was
one.
It was so unintentional too, actually. Like,
yeah.
I was just like, I just want to bring some clarity to living with illness, and they were like, hey! And I was like, ah!
Love it.
Yeah.
So yes, Claire has cystic fibrosis, and I love her channel because she brings a reality to people living with cystic fibrosis. A lot of times, people are scared to talk about it to people that are living with it, and she just puts it out there, and she's really funny. So let's go back to basics, just for people that don't know, what is cystic fibrosis?
Sure. Cystic fibrosis is a genetic disease, meaning you're born with it, and it causes an overload of mucus to accumulate in your body, and your mucus kind of forms, it's like tar pretty much, because sodium isn't flowing through it. So you can't clear it out of your lungs, which means you get infections, you get cysts, you get intestine problems, stomach problems, sinus problems. It's kind of known as the ripple effect disease because it causes a bunch of other issues. On a whole, you know, I think the hardest part about having CF is that you have 4 to 5 hours of treatments a day. It's a lot of maintenance, it's a lot of energy, it's 50 somewhat medications, it's, you know, 2 to 3 week long hospital stays every few months. So there's a lot of kind of stop and go, like you know, you're in school, you're living your life, and then you have to go in the hospital, and then you have to do treatments. And so, so it's really just a high maintenance illness above anything else. But
And 70,000 people worldwide have cystic fibrosis. 30,000 of them are in the United States, which I thought was interesting that almost half of the people are in the United States.
It is interesting. It's very interesting. And don't get me talking about this too long because I'm a nerd, so I get really into this.
No, I want to know about this.
But no, so what's interesting is there's this whole theory about cystic fibrosis that it developed as a means to combat cholera, kind of evolutionarily speaking. Because what happened is in Northern Europe, just in a few towns in Northern Europe, there was so much cholera going on and people were passing away. The only people that were surviving were ones that had this weird mutation that made it so that they couldn't be affected because sodium uptake was different. And that ended up developing into cystic fibrosis.
Wow.
But it was concentrated just in Northern European countries.
Okay.
So nowadays, it's an illness that predominantly only affects people of Spanish descent because it moved down to Spain and then moved down to South America. It only affects Spanish descent, Caucasian, and very, very rarely does it affect the African American community or the Asian community.
Wow.
So both of your parents need to have the gene for you to have it.
Okay.
But if both of your parents have the gene, you only have a 1 in 4 chance of getting it.
Do you have a memory that really sticks out as being one of your favorite from when you were a child?
I think one of the best memories is honestly from when I was in the hospital, and I was having a sleepover with one of my good friends, and you know, technically you're not allowed to have anyone over past, 9 o'clock. And even though no one would have actually done anything, no one would have said, we have to kick you out, I was just under this notion that like we should try and hide her. You know what I mean? So it's like this huge, it's kind of this huge like game. And then I was super into spy stuff at the time. So it was this huge elaborate, like, let's see how long we can like hide you. So every time the nurse would come in, we'd like find a new hiding spot or like she would, when it was time to go to bed, we'd like put her in my bed and I'd go hide behind the thing and she'd pretend to be me. And like all this just crazy, like ridiculous stuff. But I think most of the good memories I've had have actually been in the hospital, funny enough.
Which I love.
Yeah,
I love that.
You wouldn't think that.
And you've talked about that, how, you've learned some of the best things from being in the hospital.
Right.
And you found positivity in that.
Truth be told, and I think this is something kind of not just to do with hospitals, but kind of in general, is I think that people like to believe that there's kind of a good part of life, like there's a normal life to be living.
Yep.
And then there's this bad life. You know what I mean? So if you're not, if you don't have the right job, if you don't have the right kind of people around you, if you not look a certain way, if you don't act a certain way, all of a sudden your life is less than, or you're not living up to your full potential, or you're not having a good life. And I think the truth is life kind of happens everywhere. You can't really stop it just because you're in a hospital room. You're still gonna feel, joy. You're still gonna get miserable. You're still gonna have bad days. You're gonna have good days. You're gonna have days where you laugh. You're gonna have days where you cry. That's kind of just being human, and it doesn't stop because you're sick, and it definitely doesn't stop because you're in the hospital. And so I think that's kind of the thing that a lot of people don't realize is like, I never put my life on hold when I went in. You know what I mean? It was never like, okay, I'm in the hospital, time to turn into a sick kid.
you've been told at different ages your life expectancy.
Right.
And it's always changed.
Yes.
So how did you handle that when you were little? And were you cognizant of it? And then how has it changed since you've become an adult?
Well, it's really interesting because for most people, you know, you're raised thinking that death is something that comes way, way later on. You don't really think about it at all until you're like in your 40s and you have a moment of like, oh.
Yeah.
So most people don't really deal with death until they're much older. When you have CF, or when you have anything that's terminal, you are raised thinking about it. And not in a hit you over the head kind of way. No one ever sat me down and was like, look, Claire, you're gonna die. You know, you better get used to it. It was more of a, no one really talked about things that far ahead.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? No one ever really was like, you know, let's think about college, let's think about work, let's think about your future. What do you want to be when you grow up? It was not something I got that often.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it programs you in a really interesting kind of subtle way. It programs you to not think that far ahead and to kind of just live for like, all right, you know, I guess whatever's going on now is I guess what's going on now. And so, you know, so for me, I think what was weirder wasn't growing up and knowing that I was gonna die. What was weirder was the moment I realized I was actually going to live. It was kind of just one of those things that was like, all right, you know, I'm going to, in a non-corny way, I'm gonna actually enjoy what I have because I had no other choice. You know, you just kind of, you have to enjoy what you have. But it was terrifying the moment I realized I was actually gonna grow up and be an adult and have to deal with adult things and that I might not pass away young.
Yeah.
That was kind of trippy for me. And I'm still coming to terms with that. Like I had to pay my rent yesterday and I was sitting there like online, like filing it out. It really is. You have a moment of like, I have enough money in my account, right?
Yeah.
And then you don't, and then there's always that moment where you're like, I should check my account, I should check my Wells Fargo, and then you're like, but if there's not enough money, I don't want to know.
Yeah.
I don't want to know there's not enough money. So then you don't check your Wells Fargo account and you just like close your eyes and you're like, okay, here it goes if I go overdrawn, oh well.
A blind trust that it's somehow going to end up in the account.
Yeah.
No, and totally.
And that paying rent, thinking that I don't have enough money in my account to pay rent is a million times more terrifying than death. Which is such a bizarre notion, but the truth is if you deal with something your entire life, it takes away the sting.
Let's talk about Claire's Place.
Sure, yes, let's.
Tell me all about it.
Okay, so where do I start? When I was 13 years old, I nearly died in a coma, and my whole family had so much support throughout that situation. We had family kind of come out from the woodworks to give my family financial support and emotional support. And when I came out of the coma, you know, because it was a miracle I came out at all, because I had like a 1% chance of surviving. And so when I came out, I realized that the support that we had was something that very few families with cystic fibrosis had. CF is a really, really taxing illness on families because you spend so much time in the hospital, because you spend so much money and energy on treatments and medical equipment and all of that. It's a really hard illness to have. And so I kind of had this idea to create kind of a fund for families that needed financial support when their kids were really sick. But so I realized there wasn't a lot of financial support, so I thought maybe I could find a way to give them that financial support when their kids are really sick, so that they can be there with their children and not have to worry about how they're gonna pay their bills and how they're gonna, pay travel expenses if they have to go to a different hospital. Thus, the Claire's Place Foundation was born, and it's been 6 years, and it's changed and it's grown so much. Like I was telling you something just a minute ago about how like when I started it was kind of like, oh, this is a fun idea, I'll help like a family or two, and then like flash forward 5 years and we won the LA Business Journal Small Nonprofit of the Year award, which was crazy huge. And then after that it just kind of exploded, and it got to the point where we were getting so many requests, but I didn't have enough funds to actually be, you know what I mean? We're like on this weird treadmill where when, what we're giving is really needed, it's really necessary in this community, but we're kind of having to keep on top of it. And so now we've grown. We don't just pay people's rent, we don't just pay people's car payments, we help them with travel expenses, we help them with medical equipment they need to get. If their insurance isn't covering it, we kind of give them all of the support that we can give that's not medical.
Claire, you're not going to know how much this really means to me. Thank you for coming on the show.
Oh,
I love your exuberance. I love your personality. I love that you are putting this out into the world.
Oh,
can you tell us, how can we donate to Claire's place?
You go to clairesplacefoundation.org.
Okay.
We're fancy. We have a .org. So go donate. Give anything you can. Seriously, it means the world to the families that we help.
We're going to link to everything in the copy below. Her channel, Claire's Place, everything that you need to know. So go check it out, all of your socials. Guys, let me know your favorite part of this interview. Let me know topics you want us to discuss on upcoming episodes and guests you want to see. As always, you can find me on Instagram and Twitter at Kirbie Johnson. And then we're going to link to everything in the copy for Claire.
Cool.
Go subscribe to her channel ASAP. Check out Claire's Place and subscribe to POPSUGAR Girls Guide for more episodes of Pretty Unfiltered.
Bye.
Bye.